Hi guys, it's Jenny.
And it's Gabby.
That was
Welcome back to our Gizli Sakli podcast.
yeah, okay, so we're covering episodes 5 and 6 this week. So, we've got some sad news for our viewers. We're so heartbroken to hear that the show is ending on episode 8. Just right when we're getting our recording schedule on time for you guys. It just
Yeah, we were literally going to be caught up, and then they did that to us. Fox did us and them so dirty. I'm so upset. I cannot believe that some shows are still on the air, and we end all the previous shows from previous years got double the episodes. Like by Janlish, for example, got I think like 13 or
13.
more episodes. So I'm pretty salty. We definitely had much more for the show, and actually tonight is the series finale in Turkey, or it was earlier today, as we're recording after midnight Turkey time. So it's a very sad day as we're talking about episodes 5 and 6, but actually episode 8 already aired, and now the show is over, which is so upsetting because we loved this show so much.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely, at least for me, one of the best summer shows in a while. I can't remember, like, besides Bionish, like, a show that was this good, like, chemistry-wise, I mean. And actually, they were adding pretty good side characters. I'm really disappointed that we won't see some of these side characters again either.
Yeah, like we've said multiple times on the pod, we love her uncle so much, and I really like Tarik and Nehir even too. And like I know Jenny and I have talked about how we wish we knew more about them, and I highly doubt we're going to now at this point. Plus, we've got knockoff Ruzgar undercover being too fun with his stupid buzz cut haircut. He's been in like 5 seconds of the show. It's really funny actually that they even hired him when he's like literally barely in the show. I don't understand, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I think he was meant to play a bigger role, but I'm gonna say. Here we go into episode 5 and 6. Gabby, you wanna take it away?
So yeah, episode 5 starts with where we left off from last time. Zainab picks up the call from Ainur, who's calling Naz, but due to the phone case mix-up, because both ladies have the exact same phone case, Zainab ends up answering and gives the phone to Levent, saying, "Here's your mother-in-law."
Ainur panics when Levant suddenly gets the call, and he's saying Annejim, and she starts panicking. She's like, who is this strange man, and why is he calling me mom? And Naz immediately seeing that Levant has her phone, takes the phone and runs into the house while to talk to her mom, where everybody else is kind of confused at this behavior. And while she goes away to talk to her mom, Levant tries to play off the situation by saying that it's been 3 years since they've been married, but his mother-in-law does not accept him. And Tarik states that the same thing happened to him with Nahir's father. It took him a while to gain his trust as well, but everything ended up working out at the end. So, this is just a little side note. I'm really, really curious now to find out about his relationship with Nahir, like now that they like let this little bit of information out, and I'm really curious to see how this ties in back with Zainab and like their family dynamic, about Zainab, her mom, and Tarik's relationship. I was hoping that it would go into detail more, but considering how many episodes we have left, I'm not sure if he'll go there, but that's just a little side. While Levant tells Tarik this, his wife tells Levant that you should go deal with Yaz, sorry. And again, the bestie behavior coming out, taking her side once again. So when Pamir goes to check back up on Naz, she she is trying to tell her mom on the phone. She's holding her phone like this, and Lava is in the front of her trying to tell her to like end the call. And so she's so confused, she doesn't know what to do. Pamir just straight up grabs the phone from her and talks to the mom and says, we'll be on the first ride home, that like we got married secretly. And that just blows Naz's mom. She goes into distraught. She just cannot believe that her daughter went to London, because in her head her daughter is in London studying, but instead she's hearing the news that her daughter went to London and got married secretly without even telling her. They're still in Turkey, by the way. They're not even in London, so he has to come up with some way to get there on time. And I really love this scene because the acting was so good. Like, Khalid's expression was so cute and funny, and I love that. um, what's her name? Simin. If I'm pronouncing that wrong, I'm sorry. I love how you can really see her anger, especially the internal screaming that she wants to just rip him apart for exposing her like that.
Yeah, you're right. That was such a good. They're such good partners, like feeding off each other, and her like they're so good too at like you said, like acting with like their eyes and their expression. Like you can feel that she's like, "Oh my god, why did you just say that?" It was so funny. I love them. I'm gonna miss them.
Yeah, it was just a chaotic mess all around. I love that. So while Pamir is trying to calm Naz down by saying that it would be easy to convince her mom, because to him this is just a regular like job, like it's an in and out quick job, right? But Naz knows her mom. They're arguing, and then eventually Naz just jumps on him from behind and is all over his back, saying, "How could you tell my mom? How could you tell my mom?" And then he lets her off onto the bed. He basically pushes her from the back, and she falls onto the bed, and she's still upset. So Pamir like grabs both of her wrists, and they come into really close contact with each other. Like they have this little moment of closeness.
Just a little moment. There is a lot of chemistry happening, y'all, throughout this whole scene.
Yeah.
She is like, "Oh, what?" She was shocked and like scandalized, but then she was into it, and he was looking into it too. I was "I see you, Pamir."
He wanted to do so. Like I don't know who wanted to make the first move, but eventually he like gently lets his release on her wrist, and he waits for her to like calm down before he gets up and holds out his hand to as a gesture to help her up, but she refuses.
Yeah, I love my independent queen. She's still salty, understandably. And so as he's coming down from the room, he runs into Zainab. I cannot stand this hoe. Like, she seriously is one of the worst, most desperate, Dizi bitches that just appear, and you're just like, oh my god, get off my screen. She's so embarrassing. She's going after this, like, happy in love, like, married guy. Like, leave him alone. I can't stand her. And so Nehir watches this interaction and she disapproves, which I love that. I love how Nehir, from right off the bat, she's been like trying to nip it in the bud and be like, this is so inappropriate. He is married. Like, stop this behavior. You're embarrassing yourself, which she is. And so Levent tells Zainab the best way to enjoy life is to get along with your mother-in-law, which is so true. And I thought that was so funny because, like, little does he know the shitstorm that's coming his way, aka Hurricane Ainur. And so afterward, Yaz comes down doing her hair, and she guides Levent away from Zainab into the garden area. I love how she's always like, she always can feel that like Zainab is like sniffing around her man, and she's like, no, 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 let's go this way. And so Tarik tells Levent to take Yaz to her mother and stay with them for a day to impress his mother-in-law, which, yet again, Tarik always has actually good advice and little tidbits. I like when we hear these little relationship advice things, which surprisingly always end up being like complimentary to both like women and men. Like, I think it's really nice that he doesn't take on like a sexist tone, which is very refreshing. And not a, even though he's older too, he doesn't have a super like traditional view, which was also surprising. And so, of course, Naz's mother, on the other hand, is in shock, and the uncle, our favorite, is trying to calm her down.
Whereas Naz is still upset at Pamir for coming up with the marriage lie to her mother. She just can't get over the fact that he just so calmingly lied to her mom, because she knows exactly how her mother is, and Pamir is just thinking that her mom would be okay. Of course, that's not the case, as we'll see later on, and he just shakes it off. However, Namuk eventually ends up knocking on their door as soon as their barbecue was over to tell them that they really made a mess of things, that that her mom Ayanor is completely out of her mind, and she's going crazy over this idea that Nas went to London and got married. Again, Pamir doesn't seem to think this is a big deal. He thinks that they're overreacting, and he doesn't seem to understand that Nas's mom is very different in she's in the sense that she's more traditional.
So we finally know what Naz's stalker's name is, Norhan, who was the neighborhood guy who's like been obsessed with Nas for God knows how long. And so him and Ainur are spending some time together, and they're trying to figure out if Nas was serious or not about the marriage, because it happened under suspicious circumstances. So now those two are like teaming up to try to figure out what is going on. So Pamir books the earliest flight from London, aka literally they just have to drive from somewhere else in Istanbul, but he pretends to book the earliest flight, and so he smartly is doing his job, his undercover job, and he's making sure that he's looking at the flight times, like the actual flight times, so that they can pretend that they were on that flight, which is very smart, so that it doesn't look sus if they like come at a different time than impossible that they could have flown, even though I don't know if the mom actually would go that far to check the flights, but it still was a very good point that he did. And so Naz is still upset at him. And Pamir questions her and asks if there's any important information that he should know as her husband, which, again, I think is totally understandable. And he's like trying to get their story straight and stuff. And so then Naz reveals that her father died of a heart attack. And so then Pamir playfully asks her if she has any scars or any marks that like he should be aware of, because he's her husband and they should be bomb chicka wow wowing, and so he should know if she has a tattoo or anything. And so then Naz of course blushes and she walks away back to her room to pack her bags for the trip to her mother's house, which is probably, just a 15-20 minute drive away.
And on the next day, on the way to her mother's, Naz and Pamir are in a taxi, and she's telling him a list of things that her mother expects him to know, or like she wants him to be in the know about. And Pamir's just like nodding along, telling her he got it, and she's freaking out completely as she's like, oh my god, my mom, she likes this, she likes that, blah blah blah. And then, to calm her down, Pamir places his hand over hers to like really let her know that he's here. And
so sweet. I was swooning, y'all.
It's so adorable. And Naz exclaims that her mother will never forgive them. At this point, because they're in a taxi, the taxi driver of course has to chime in and give his 2 cents, and tells them that Naz's mom will be more forgiving if they give her a grandson. And then Pamir agrees. And he gives Naz a huge smile as she looks away annoyed.
I love that moment so much because Pamir was like, actually, that's a pretty good idea, and you're right. Like, she will forgive us. I'm like, Pamir, this is a fake relationship, sir.
Exactly, right? So when they finally arrive outside of her house, Naz sees her mom on the balcony and she waves to her mom, but her mom is not having it. Her mom doesn't even acknowledge that wave. She's already mad. So then Pamir tries his luck to like wave back, and she still once again is not budging. And then as they're walking in, Naz again warns Pamir, take off your shoes. And she already has taken off her shoes and is quickly moving towards her mom to give her mom a hug, but Ainur pushes back. She immediately starts to question Pamir and Naz. She's like, what is this relationship? And where did it come from? Blah, blah, blah. Like, how could you not tell me? And eventually, Pamir gets introduced as Levent, using his fake name to Ainur. And Ainur is still distraught and decides that they'll get married the traditional Turkish way. And once that's decided, that kind of sparks a outrage. Not really an outrage, but like Pamir didn't think he would have to participate in an actual wedding or its ceremonies and stuff. But Ainur has her mind set, so she has it set, And they basically have this back and forth, and then Nas eventually pushes him out the door, telling him, "You need to come with your family to ask for my hand," because as we all know, Levent Pamir doesn't have family. So he ends up calling Tala
Yeah,
later.
I love that so much because also speaking of her like kicking Pamir, aka Levant, out, like where did she think that he was going to sleep? And I also noticed how like Nas had his suitcase too, so like he didn't have any of his clothes, like. And he supposedly flew from London, so like, where was he supposed to stay? Like, go get a hotel. Like, it's a whole mess. I was just like, that is straight up savage from Ainur. Like, I know she's upset, but the fact that she kicked her son-in-law out, like, and he barely even got to like introduce himself. That was so mean. So Pamir gets on the phone right away with Talit and tells him that he needs a fake family by the end of today. Which, of course, I love that he called him right away. He was like, I know, my man Talit, my Abe Talit is going to help me. And so meanwhile, Talit preps the guy to give the money to Adam. Remember how Levant asked for Talit's help last episode on getting cash from a person unwilling to pay. So they're like at this like warehouse and he's like giving him the rundown and the guy's like really freaking out. He must be a friend of Talit's because the way they're talking, like they seem to know each other from way back. And he basically saying that he's like, why are you dragging me into this mess? Like, am I going to get shot? Like, what is going on? And so then Zainab reveals to Tufan how she flunked out of college in London. I was like, how am I not surprised? I feel like she probably was just like playing around and like not going to class. So like, is anyone surprised? She's making him promise not to tell anyone about it, of course. She's like, Uncle, you better not tell anybody. And so Tarik tells Adam that he is being sus for no reason about getting the payment for Levant, which I thought was so funny because like Adam was actually not overreacting for once. Like from day one, he's been like, there's something wrong with that dude, and he was right all along. So I actually feel bad for Adam because Tarik now like is loving. He's Team Levant all the way, just like his wife is with Team Yaz. So he's like, you better not be talking about my brother like that.
I know. And you know what's so weird? I was kind of surprised that Zainab and Tufan were actually really close. I was like, I kind of like this. I was like, I wish I got to see more of their relationship because they are closer in age. So I could see why they get along more.
Yeah, and they were kind of cute too. They were like brother and sister, obviously, because like you said, they're close age. But yeah, you're right. Like it softened both of them and made both of them ironically more likable when they were together, which there's barely any scenes of them. So that was unfortunate pairings on their part.
Their banter was really good. I really liked that. And Naz's mom, Ainur, and Naz, they have a little conversation in their bedroom. It starts off with Ainur asking if Naz is pregnant, if that's why she decided to get married so fast. And to which Naz like heavily denies. She's like, nope, that's not why. Why would you think that I'm pregnant? I forgot what was the word in Turkish? Hamle, right? Hamle for pregnant.
Yeah, hamile. Yeah, she was like hamilesin, and she was like, no,
yuck. And so she heavily denies that, and she keeps pushing the story about how she like fell in love with Levent in London, and it was love at first sight to the mom. Obviously, the mom is not, believing this because would anybody really believe that? Like, if you went for London for a few days and you came back married, obviously people are gonna be suspicious. Like, come on.
Hey, my family and friends would believe it if he looked like Pamir. That's all I'm gonna say.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, I see where you're going with that, Gabby. But questioning mode eventually turns into a super emotional scene where her mom states how much that she loves her daughter and she's worked really hard to make sure that she's never made her father's presence feel like it was never there. She's and then she also gets a necklace from her mom that her father left her for her marriage, and I was just crying my eyes out. I was like, Ainur is so unbearable at times, but this was such a sweet scene. Like, you can really tell that she's worked her butt off to like make sure that Naz never feels like that she's alone, as being her only child and stuff. And I was like, this is so sad. But yeah, so as this scene takes place, Zainab is sneaking around in her father's place looking for something, she's like looking all over, which we eventually find out it's Levant's phone number so that she could call him later on, I guess. Levant is seen getting sweets because, again, Nas has told him a million times that her mom likes sweets with walnuts, so of course he's had it written down. He's like, okay, let me go get the sweets, and you'll never guess where he goes to get the sweets from.
Norhan. So he goes
Norhan.
he goes to Norhan's apparent bakery and ends up getting the sweets from there. And I was dying because this is one of my favorite scenes. It's like, so like they're having this lovely moment, and he's like telling him how he got just like he's married or getting engaged or something like that. I think he was like, I'm my mother-in-law, or I don't know, something like that. Like, I want to make a good impression, and like my future mother-in-law loves walnut whatever pastry. And so then Norhan is like, oh, congratulations. And then he was like, oh, I like almost got engaged once or something like that. And like, he's obviously talking about Nas, which makes it even funnier because they're both talking about Nas, but neither of them has any idea. And so like the guy's going on, and he's like being so nice to Pamir, aka Levant. And so then he's like, good luck and like have a great marriage or whatever. And so then they're outside, like Pamir and his fake family, aka Talat and Chichek, who we end up finding out works as a police officer with them. And so they're like all there, and so then Norhan like randomly appears and like starts grabbing the sweets and was like, you, like, oh my god, you're here for my nods, like, how dare you. And so they have started having this fight, and it's one of the funniest scenes. Just on the street grabbing, like, paying tug of war with this thing of sweets, and it's like really nicely wrapped with like a meshy thing around it, and it's just hilarious because then Talat ends up screaming and Chuk is like screaming, and they're like, what is going on? And then of course like the mom Ainur is like looking at the window from the balcony, is like, what the fuck is going on down there? And so it was really funny. I was cackling. And so then I really loved Talat and Chichek's relationship and their chemistry, especially with Pamir, aka Levant. It was so good. And then also I love too that when Talat comes up, Pamir is like looking, and he's like, oh, he's like, you shaved your beard. And he was like, yeah, but I kept the mustache. Like, doesn't this look great? That's basically what he was saying. It was really, really funny. I really liked that scene.
Yes, I agree. I really liked Talak's costume. It was on point, might I say. Really good change for him. And Chichek, yes, I loved her. Oh my gosh, she was so funny. So funny. So, they come up, and Pamir, aka Levant, he's already, like, he's disappointed that he got his sweets snatched, because he's like, hey, this is the sweets that I needed to get for my mother-in-law to impress her.
Sweet snatched. I love that. He got his sweet snatched. I wish that's what he said. He should have like, this guy just stole your sweets, Sunday. I'm sorry.
I know. Poor guy. That's so... And that was the one thing Nas told him to make sure you have is the sweets, bro. Please have the sweets. And he didn't have that. So now they go up, and they're sitting awkwardly because as they enter, the room is filled with a bunch of like relatives, friends, and you know, people from their maholle all together.
Like 40 people in that room. I was dying too when they panned out, and like all the grandmas and like aunts and uncles, and like when you see like the acting was literally like a perfection as always. Like when you see Pamir and Chichek and Talat's faces, it was so funny. They were just like,
they were not expecting it.
People.
Yeah. So, like, then they're all sitting down awkwardly, and whenever Tarik tries to, like, mention the fact that Levant and Nas met in London, Nas's mom is, like, completely shutting it down. She's like, no, we don't need to know the details. Please move along. And, she also sends Nas to go make coffee while they're talking. So, while Nas is making coffee, she has not the flashback, because it happened like seconds before she was sent to go make the coffee, that Levant gets a message on his phone, but he won't tell her who it is. And so while thinking of that, she grabs the salt and she puts in like salt into his coffee. Like, I don't think she knows, or maybe she does know, but
Oh no, she
she's
was doing it on
jealous.
purpose. Remember, like small tea coffee is the test of true love for the Turks getting engaged, and I always loved these scenes. So I wasn't surprised that she was doing that because like she had the reason. Because actually, they expect his coffee to be salty. You remember, like usually they're watching the groom to be to see if he drinks it, because if he drinks it all, then they will say yes that they can get married. So I really liked that. And eventually Naz's mother accepts the relationship after a back and forth between the uncle and Chichek, which I really liked because Chichek was like kept defending Levant, and because she kept being like, well, this is my daughter and my only daughter, and I can't just like give her away, basically. And she was like, well, what about our son Levant? What is he, like chopped liver? He's not just a whatever off the street. And I really liked how right away she came into like mama bear territory and was defending him so much, which was so cute. And then of course the uncle too was like, he was trying to play mediator, which I really liked. And so then they end up taking this really cute family picture together.
It'd have been cute if it was a selfie, but it was cute. They all got together, took their little family picture, and while this is all happening, Tarik is meeting with his uncle's son Yazir. However, while they're talking to each other, he feels really disrespected. Like the uncle's son sits down before Tarik does. He talks out of turn. He does not like it, and he just overall, you could see that he feels disrespected. But I will say though, that guy was so attractive, and I'm not talking about Tarik, you guys. I'm talking about Yazir. Oh,
yeah, Yazar was so hot. I was like, who is this man? Because like I think we saw him in passing for like a second in another episode. But then I was like, it's that guy again. Which I feel like we've seen him somewhere else in like a small role because he did look familiar. Maybe, but he looks like what I think the stereotypical Turkish man would look like, even though we know now that like that's not actually what Turks look like. They look like literally anybody, like every combination of like hair color and skin color and everything. But I feel like he is like the stereotypical hot Turkish man. Like tall, dark, and handsome. Exactly. Like beard.
For an extra, he did pretty well. He left the impression. Let me just tell you. Gabby has written on her notes she's upset that he wasn't played by Adam, that actor.
Oh, yeah. He should have been played by, like, he should have been playing Adam. Mm-hmm. Like, I would have loved to see that eye candy on screen much more than the crumbs we got. It was disrespectful.
But yeah, we'll see if we could try to put up a video of him so you guys will know what we're talking about, who we're talking about. Because let it be known to the directors in Turkey, we want to see more of this actor. We don't know his name, but we support him 100%.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't even think we'll be able to figure out who he is unless he is listed on IMDb. Maybe we'll figure it out. I was like, I need to start following this cutie because he can get it.
And on the other hand, Naz's mom she's made up her mind. She wants to see her daughter in a wedding dress. But of course, Naz is like, no, Mom, we're already married. We don't need to get married again. But of course, her mom shuts her up and goes, you're my only daughter. We're going to have this wedding and I want to see you in it. And that prompts Naz to ask, have you forgiven Levent yet? And then her mom goes, no, I need a wedding. Straight and simple. She says that she saved up funds for this reason alone and tells Naz not to worry about the expenses whatsoever, that she's got it.
That was so sweet, and like I didn't expect that was the reason why she also was like pushing so much to have the wedding. Like it is understandable. I feel like in some ways her mom is actually not overreacting, because they basically eloped and she doesn't know this dude from Adam. So like it totally makes sense that she would want to experience all these things with her daughter. It's just unfortunate for our Nazmir because they're not actually together. Mm-hmm. So it just causes more fun shenanigans for us to watch. And so then while this is all happening, Pamir is all alone in the house and like he looks so lonely without his Naz. And so then that's when Naz calls to check up on him, which I love that because I think he might have even been like looking at her contact information. So he was just like, I miss my partner. So sweet.
You can like really see like as he has to return to that, he really misses her. Great acting by Halat, by the way. Oh my god, so great.
Which also, by the way, thank God they had that fake house that they live in for him to sleep somewhere, because where else was Pamir supposed to go and sleep?
I know. Did he even have his clothes?
No, that's the thing. That's what I'm saying. Is like technically Levant's suitcase is at Naz's mom's apartment. So like I feel like they should have explained that away. They should have had like a throwaway line where she was like, "Oh well, thank God you had your other suitcase, babe," or something.
Or you know what?
Or they were both.
She should have pushed the suitcase with him and be like, "Here, get your shit in."
That's what I was expecting. I was expecting the suitcase to come back, because they definitely come with 2 suitcases, and that was it out of the taxi. So I was just like, well, wait. So then are we to expect like actually both of those are Naz's then,
Or
since he didn't even like pretend to get his suitcase?
Or we can just pretend that this is just a plot hole that the writers just, you know.
But I hate these kind of plot holes, Jenny. I need answers. Where was his suitcase?
True. And the mom is spying on her as Levant and Naz go off in the morning to see the chief. And the uncle, Naamuk, is asking Ainur if she has any plans to like stop them with the way that she's like acting. And he tells her basically, you need to stop this behavior. That Levant seems like a really nice guy, and Ainur is like, do you know him or something? Why do you keep saying that? Like, he's a nice guy. We don't know nothing about him and anything. So anyway, Namu watches as she goes to the door, because she pulls out some official type of document and walks out. So we assume that maybe she's going to the bank or whatever, because we can't read Turkish. We don't know what that doc is. Well, that doc will come into play later. That's all I have to say for now. And while during the car ride, Naz tells Pamir, my mom is calling you for dowry shopping. And this is where Pamir completely freaks out entirely, because he thought it would have been over by just meeting her, telling her that they're married, blah blah blah. But you can tell that Pamir does know nothing about Turkish traditions, because I guess the dowry shopping part is a really large part of the Turkish weddings. And basically he blows up on Naz and says that I just want to focus on the wedding, blah blah blah. Your mom is like making this very difficult, but you know. And then he says something along the lines of, "Let's see what else Ainur has in store for us." To which Naz feels very disrespected that he said that about her mom like that. And she tells him to stop the car, and at first he thinks that she's joking and he keeps going, and she tells him again to stop the car. And he stops the car and she walks out angrily. And they're having a little back and forth argument about it. And he says something along the lines of, let's just get this done and over it so that we can go back to our house. And then Naz goes, our house, because that's the first time that Levant Pamir has used our.
All the field.
Yes, exactly. But then he corrects himself. He catches himself. He goes, "No, the house is Levant and not Naz." And then she goes, "As difficult as this is for you, it's even more difficult to me, because I'm lying to my mom and I can't handle doing this by myself." And he tells her, "You're not alone. I have your back. I promise." And then she goes, "Promise," and he goes, "Promise." I'm like, oh, they're partners for real. So sweet.
Yeah, that was so sweet. I also really loved the scene before they get in the car to leave for mom's, and how they were like, she like goes up on her tippy toes and like hugs him and kisses him on the cheek, and like they're being all sweet and snuggly, like while they're basically having almost a fight, because they're trying to talk about like going to the chief and like how to deal with this mess now and everything else, and like if they should tell the chief. And so I really liked that too. And then we have this amazing breakthrough where he calls it our house. So sweet.
I know, it's so adorable. Next, Nehir comes to Tarik and Nehir are having breakfast, and she kind of wants to make plans for just the two of them, because she goes, it's been a while since we've hung out, you know, since we've had our son Omar, And Tarik kind of blows her off and goes, I don't have time for you. I have to do important stuff. And Nahir gets all sad thinking that that he's cheating on her because he suddenly doesn't feel interested in her. But we know as the audience he has a lot going on. He has to go to therapy with Nas with nobody knowing that he's going to therapy. He has to worry about his fish thing, his dealing of whatever he's got, and then he's got to deal with Zaynab. I don't know, man. I feel bad for this old man. He got a lot of issues, got a lot of problems.
I know, but he needed to just, be a true partner and like stop lying to her and just be an adult and tell her that he's in therapy. Like she would be so happy that he was in therapy and was taking care of himself since he had his heart attack, aka panic attack. She would be thrilled that he was taking, because she even said for them to go and talk to Yaz and have her be their doctor. So I just really, this whole thing is just so dumb and disrespectful to Nehir, especially since it seems like Zaynab keeps hinting about how Nehir and Tarik were cheating with each other on Zaynab's mom. So that is even more of a mess, because if Tarik really was doing that, then it really is not cute behavior to his supposed love, aka Nehir, his second wife, to be treating her that way, because obviously she will be thinking that that's what's going on, because if once a cheater, always a cheater. But anyway, to continue our love of Chichek, she says, I've never seen a more annoying person than Miss Ainur, which is never truer statement. I loved her so much, so funny. And so he's accidentally telling the chief that she saw her, and he's like, wait, what? And so then they try to cover it up. And we also come to find out that Chichek works in the police behind the desk kind of job at the office. So she's not like in the field as a detective. She does something at the station. And she's usually wearing like her cute little police vest jacket thing. And she dresses so different from Chichek, which I thought was also really interesting. She dresses super casual with like super casual shirts and like pants and jeans and stuff and her hair is very different too. She obviously is not wearing makeup and doing her hair. So I thought it was really interesting because Chichek is like supposed to be this wealthy woman. And so she's always wearing like nice dresses and shoes and having her hair and makeup done. So I thought it was really cute to see the real Chichek for once. And so then Levent comes to see Zaynab at his coffee shop, and so she's warning him to stay away from her family. And then while that's going on, Nehir went to go vent to her bestie Yaz about what we were saying, about how she thinks that he's cheating on her, and like it's a whole mess, because obviously she can't tell her that he's not cheating, that she's coming to see her as a therapist, because that breaks patient confidentiality. So it's just like this whole mess, and she just keep being like, I don't think Tarik Abe would do that, and like whatever. And so then Zaynab again is like talking to Levent, and she tells him that her father is not what he seems, which is interesting because I was like, is she trying to protect him?
I have no idea.
Or was she just stir the pot as always? So then Levent ends up going to see Tarik later, even though Zaynab had just told him not to, which I thought was really funny.
It's funny because when Zaynab is meeting with Levent, she tells him straight to his face, I like you, so here's a little warning. Stay away from my family. They'll ruin you too. So I guess she is indirectly telling him.
Yeah, the way she said, I like you, though, it wasn't, honestly, I don't know what her deal is. Like, I honestly think she just wants to mess with everybody's lives and like ruin them. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think she obviously definitely does think that Pamir, aka Levent, is very attractive, and she would go for him possibly anyway, even if he wasn't married, and like best friends with her stepmother that she hates, and like also close to her father that she hates. So I think it's like, it's more she just wants to mess with everybody's lives rather than she actually genuinely does like him. Yeah, my favorite scene.
Oh, okay. So this is like when they're shopping. So, there were...
Oh, yes. We went to go get a bunch of gold, and this was another great scene that I just remembered where Chichek is, like, one-upping Ainur even worse than before. So they're, like, in the gold shop, and because Namik was talking about how, like, they have to buy gold for the wedding, because that's another Turkish wedding tradition. And so, like... Talit, Chichek, and Pamir, aka Levant, are like all freaking out because they're like looking at each other and like their credit card slash money, and they're like secretly whispering, being like, "Wait, how much money? Like, how much money can we put on this card?" Like, trying to figure out how they're gonna pay for this because like, the mom was already talking about the gold, and then of course, then she like says something that sets Chichek off again, who is Mama Bear defending Levant, and it's like, well, my Levant, we're going to be buying like even more gold than you. And so it becomes this one up. And then that's when Talit and Palmyra are like about to pass out because they're like, how are we going to pay for this? They're like, shut up, Jack. Shut up. Stop doing that. And so then they end up getting gold, which apparently her mother had saved up also for that, which was really sweet. And so she like pulls out this wad of cash, and Naz and Namek are like, what is going on here? So it was very sus.
So they buy the gold, and as they're leaving the store, a robber just happens to spot the bag that Ainur has, and he grabs it and makes her run for it. And then this is so chaotic because they don't know what to do, and then Talit goes, Naz is the police, and then Naz is like, yes, I'm the police, and then she runs after the guy, and then Talit like looks at Pamir to be like, go follow her, and then he goes, Ashkam!
Scene.
Ashkam! And he runs right out.
Oh my god, that was so freaking funny. The way Halit yelled Ashkam and the face he made and how he started running is one of the funniest Dizi moments I've ever seen. It seriously should be taught in acting classes in Turkey because it was so freaking funny. And like they were acting like they didn't know like who was supposed to go after him because they're all police, but she doesn't know that, so they had to pretend.
Yeah,
it was so funny. But I think her mom should be happy that he was going after his police wifey and like was going to help her and help his mother-in-law to get her money back and the gold. Because that was the other thing is her bag was full of cash and gold. So it wasn't just the gold.
And together Naz and Pamir stopped the guy and she reported it in and he handcuffed him and blah blah blah. And they take the bag back to the mom because Naz is like opens the bag. She's like, okay, what is in here besides the gold? And she sees so much cash and she's confused as to how her mom even has this much money. Because her mom is like a retired nurse, you guys have to remember, and then her uncle clearly doesn't make the most money doing the guard job. So she takes it back to the mom and she's like, Anne, how do you have this much money? And the mom finally reveals that the reason how she has all this money is because she sold her land for her wedding. And this of course makes Naz 10 times more guiltier than she already feels because that was their land. That was the document that Ainur took earlier when she was leaving. She was going to sell her land to pay for the wedding. So sad. And while they're out shopping, Tufan is getting jealous of Levent because Tarik has come to the conclusion that he wants to do business with Levent. He feels like Levent has done enough for him and he feels close enough to him to start a business. But Tufan kind of feels left out because Tarik does not trust Tufan the way that he seems to like trust Levent right now, and he basically tells Tarik, you only have one brother and that's me, you best to remember that, something along the lines of that.
I loved that moment because he really was talking the truth, because like I've said multiple times on the pod how savage and mean Tarik is to Tufan, even though that's his little brother and his only brother seemingly, because they never talk about another sibling. And so I thought Tufan was actually not overreacting at all. Mm-hmm. I've been waiting for this moment, to be honest, because it is really disrespectful to poor Tufan. Like, because he loves Levent so much and was like always talking to him and hanging out with him, and then like Tufan's literally just like there in the background, so it's pretty savage.
Yeah, he's just chopped liver at this point. And this is way before like Levent like walks in to meet up with Tarik. He kind of sees the ending of that conversation because Tarik ends up throwing something and something falls onto the floor. And Tarik is asking Levent if he would basically like to join the business together for transportation. He goes, I don't like people, but I like you. And he offers him 2 chess pieces, which I think is a queen and a pawn. And Levant ends up taking the
No,
pawn,
the king and
the
the
king, the
pawn,
king
which,
and the
yeah,
pawn.
like we said, Levant takes the pawn, which I thought was
Yeah.
very smart move.
Yes, and he goes, "It would be my great honor to join you." And I guess he accidentally knocks down something, like it falls out of his hand or something happens, but Levant has to bend down to pick it up. And as he bends down to pick it up, he sees that the thing that Tarik had thrown and the thing that ended up falling on the floor was the bug that he had planted episodes ago in Tarik's office. So it and he kind of, as he's looking down at it, he sees that Tarik and Adam all notice it at once. And Adam has this kind of weird smile as if he's been waiting for something like this to come. And boom, the episode is over. What
Yeah,
are
I
your
really liked that
thoughts?
episode. It had me laughing so hard, like all the shenanigans, like and then the fight over the sweets, the walnut sweets. There were so many great, amazing, funny moments. And then, of course, then we even had some development on Pamir being sweet and nice and a partner finally to Naz too. So episode 6 starts off yet again replaying the last like 5 minutes or so from the previous episode, which we hate so much. I hate this laziness that this Dizi does with this. It's very frustrating. I'm like, we already know what happened. You can play like the last 30 seconds, not the last 5 minutes. Anyway, so as y'all remember, Pamir, aka Levant, is in Tarik's basement office and notices the bug was dislodged from under the desk. And surprisingly, Levant boldly points out the bug and says in a surprised tone, "What is that, Tarik, brother?" I love that he literally was like, "I'm gonna just blow this out of the water so they can't think that it's me." Adam puts his fingers up to be quiet, and Tarik says, "Oh, it's just her rosary. Is it getting hot in here? Let's go to the garden." They're so awkward, like so obvious. And so Levant heads upstairs, and Adam and Tarik are left alone, and he almost hits Adam and then says, "Put those beads back in place. It's getting very hot in here." I thought that was really mean.
So this all means that they knew that the bug was there, and Levant bravely acting clueless, knowing damn well that it was their bug out there. So, he has the upper hand right now. He's in both situations. He knows who's being bugged, and he knows now that they know that it's bugged, so they're obviously gonna check the house and everything, so but at least he knows that they know.
So when they get to the garden, Levant is still asking what is going on, which made me laugh out loud because he is the bug planter and he knows damn well what is going on. And so he's such a good little actor. Like he was literally like putting on an Oscar performance, being like, "But I don't understand what's going on." And so Autumn takes his phone and takes the SIM card out to check for more bugs, seemingly. And while Tarik tells him they were being listened to and for Levant to calm down, this has nothing to do with you, which again, laugh out loud, because it literally was him that did it. And so Tarik, it's all to do about him, is what, like, meaning Tarik saying it's all about me, not about you. And so Levant is freaking out, and Tarik says, "Don't worry, you'll just be transporting fish. Go home beautifully and calm down. You've had enough adventure for today," which I thought was really cute and sweet. And so Tarik says, "Levant, you're not going to tell anyone what you saw, right?" And he was like, yeah, whatever you say. Of course not. And so then Autumn and Tarik are talking after he leaves about how the bug was planted and sweep the entire house for more. And they're like trying to figure out like who it was. And so then this was my favorite moment of the episode, probably. The chief arrives at Naz's family's apartment and her uncle answers the door dancing and says, "Oh, Chief, come in. You've made it." And then Naz, Tala, and Chichek are all dancing happily at Naz's head party. And then Chief comes in, and they all see him, and their smiles immediately drop. And they make the funniest surprised, like, / scared faces. And he asks what's going on and why Tala and Chichek look like that.
The chief looks so betrayed. Oh my god. He's like, because he comes to the house to tell the mom, like, once and for all that your visa has been rejected, and instead he sees all his police officers dancing. He's like, wait, why wasn't I invited to this?
I know, you're right. It was kind of sad because then I did kind of feel bad for him because he kind of was like, first of all, he was like confused, honestly, and was like, what is going on? And then I also think you're right. I think he kind of was like, wait, why was I not invited? Which, of course, he ends up figuring out why, but it was still very funny. I loved their faces, and he was so savage, being like, why are you dressed like that? Or why do you look like that? Which I thought was really funny, but he's right. Chuchek really does look really different, so I can see why. And also, I was wondering if he was also referring to Talat's now mustache only instead of his beard. And so Anor comes to welcome him and says, while you're here, you're responsible for my daughter. She she became a bride and fell in love.
That shade that she threw at him. Like, you were supposed to take care of my daughter.
She threw all that shade at the chief, and he like doesn't even know what is going on either. That's why it was even meaner, because he like literally didn't even do the. Well, he did. He had them pretend to be a married couple, but not to her family. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, you're right. The shade was very much thrown. And so she's like, she became a bride, fell in love. Nas says, love at first sight. Just as Pamir knocks on the door, they open it, and he and the chief again have the funniest like W2F faces at each other. And Namek is saying, oh, the groom has arrived.
And he's even more shocked.
Yeah, the uncle literally is like just stirring that pot even more. He's like, let's continue the shenanigans and the chaos. And so the chief is understandably angry at Nazmir, asking how the F this happened. They tell him the whole mess. And the chief says, daughter, is there someone who didn't hear you were on a secret mission? Which he's not. He's saying all the points, and what Pamir and everybody's been saying this entire time. Really, it's out of control how everybody knows that she's on that secret mission now at this point almost.
Literally, the only person that doesn't know has to be her creepy stalker lover guy.
Yeah, well, and her mom technically, yeah. But yeah, it's a mess. I was just like, oh my gosh, she isn't wrong. But Pamir like says that's why I said we got married in secret. That let's go kiss at the hand of Miss Ainur. I thought that was it. Nas says, actually, I warned you, which she did. She said multiple times that was not going to be it. And so the chief says, either your uncle appears, then your mom. Is this how a secret operation goes? Which I really like because, again, he's right. And then, surprise everybody, Pamir defends Nas and says it's not Nas's fault. I said we got married in secret. And then he winks at Nas. And I was yelling. I was like, oh my God, what is going on here?
I know.
This was very scary.
He was basically telling her, I got your back. And then she felt obligated to have his back as well.
Yes, and then she was like, then he says, Pamir did it not to he did it not to jeopardize the operation, chief, as in like, we're continuing the operation by rolling with the punches on the fly. And then they look at each other and they're smirking, which I love. And so then the chief tells them to stop it and don't go on. He's like, really, he's at the end of his rope. He's had enough. And then at that point, of course, Talat and Chuchek come and join them on the balcony. And the chief starts yelling at them. And she immediately throws Talat under the bus, which I loved.
Poor Chuchek.
And Talat's like, yes, I'm to blame. Yeah, but you're being super quiet. I love them. They were so funny. Chuchek was like, I didn't do anything. It's all Talat. He made me come with him.
Yeah, because she's just a desk job girl, you know? Like, she's not even a field agent, which is probably why the chief was even more shocked to see her there, you know? He's like, what are you doing out in the field?
And then the chief says, stop it. Yeah, the chief's like, stop it, you all. This operation is over. And so then it's over. Talat, clear that house tomorrow. And Pamir says, we can't cancel the operation. And the chief says, why? Were you looking forward to your return from your honeymoon? The chief is on the roll. This scene, I was laughing so hard. I loved it so much. And so then the chief says, tell me at least one worthwhile proposal, like to convince him why this is a good idea. And Pamir smirks and says, Tarik gave me a job. And they're like, what? What do you, like, job? To the job? So everybody's like freaking out and like is excited. And Pamir says Tarik wants to work with him and have him transport his goods. And Nas says, we're part of his family now. So like she was again helping her partner and was like laying it on thicker for the chief to be like, you can't close this mission out now because we really are in. And so Pamir says, Chief, please give us one more chance. And the chief says, tonight, have the henna night or whatever. But tomorrow at the stations, you're going to explain to me everything in detail, bright and early. And so Pamir says he can't go to the station if he's going to work with Tarik now. So then the chief says, well, let's meet at Yaz's psychologist's office. But then she says that won't work because Tarik is coming to her office tomorrow. And so the chief is like getting angrier and angrier. And Pamir says, then we'll see you at Levant's office. And so the chief says, but early in the morning. And he says, bye, see you all later. And she says, really, Chief, it wasn't my fault. I'm not to blame. And then she turns to them all and says, it won't be okay. You forced me here, and now the chief will fire us all. Don't you understand, kids? I have a loan to pay off. Because at that point, they're all talking amongst themselves just as the chief is leaving, and they're like, she's freaking out the most out of all of them.
Yeah, because again, her job is like the one that's most on the line because, again, she's not a regular field agent. She's a behind-the-desk job type of girl. So she's basically arguing with Naz and she's saying that this is all your fault, blah, blah, blah. And then Naz points it back at Chichek. She's like, you're saying stuff angrily that gets us in trouble all the time. And eventually, like, they're going back and forth. And Ainur steps out because she's like, why are you guys arguing? Like, we're supposed to, like, have this henna night. And then I guess Chichek goes, she opens her big mouth without really thinking, and she goes, this is a family issue, to which Ainur gets offended. She's like, I thought we were family. Like, what is this stuff that you can't tell me about? And, but Pamir again saves them by saying that it's nothing major. It's just, like something that has come up between us, and we'll be heading back. And she kind of gets happy in the way that he explains that, oh, like, we're coming back or whatever. And he goes, okay, thank you. Like, let's go inside. And she leads them in. Back at Tarik's house, he gathers the entire family outside. And they're all confused as to what's going on because it's in the middle of the night and they're like, why, what's happening? And he comes up with excuses. He's like, because Omar is there, he doesn't want him to know. Finally, after talking for a little bit, the whole family comes to find out that there was a bug in the house, in his office. So they panic, thinking that maybe it's all over the place, thinking that their conversations have been heard.
And so then everyone's saying bye and leaving the henna night, and Ainur tells them that they need to meet again tomorrow to go over the wedding details. And Chichek says, I'm not coming back here. I love her so much. And so Talit says, oh yes, honey, you're tired. So he's like trying to like cover for her. They're like, oh yeah, don't worry, like you're gonna get a nice rest. And so Levent and his family ask if Naz can come stay at their house only for tonight. And Namek says we shouldn't interfere in husband and wife until tomorrow. So she's like saying that like this lady keeps changing her mind and things are on a breakneck speed and it's like a mess. Like this is your problem. So then Pamir says, Chichek, calm down, please. And she says, what calm down? I've been calm enough. We're going to get fired and the operation is over. Why are we still lying? And so Naz makes this funny, angry, frustrated noise and says, can we not talk about this at the door? Because they're like right outside the mom's watching them all. And so Talit says, yes, Naz is right. She's like, let's go. And all the while, of course, she's like creeping from the balcony. So it's a mess. So then Ainur is cleaning up and says to Namek that Levent looks like a good kid and Talit too, but Chichek is very strange. She did not like that combative behavior that she was getting right back from her. That's what I thought was really ironic. Is like Chichek was literally feeding off the energy and the vibes that Ainur was giving and just giving it right back to her, and she did not like that apparently.
Next morning, Naz is in the kitchen and she has a coffee in her hand looking at the phone. And Pamir comes up smirking and says, what, no breakfast today? And of course, it seems like Naz has a little attitude for what happened yet. Not that she's wrong for having this attitude. I think that Pamir totally deserves it. because he didn't let her know where he
Which
was
I
going.
I kept thinking he was going to find her on the couch. Like, I couldn't believe that she ran back up the stairs and hid.
Yeah, I mean, me too. But I don't think that she expected him to come back so soon either. Nazmir arrives at Levant's police meeting with Pamir, and and Pamir tries to talk to the chief, but the chief tells him to shut up and asks if he knows what Tarik wants to transport yet. And then Pamir finally asks, like, can I talk? And he goes, okay, yeah. The chief goes, okay, yes, but only about work. Tarik is coming in with the details later, is what Pamir tells Chief. And Chichek tells the Chief at this little meeting that's taking place, you told me to stay away from them, but I am Naz's sister-in-law. How will I stay away, Chief? And so the chief goes, okay, you can go on doing your role as continued. And Talik said, that's unfortunate. And Chachik said, that's easy. And Pamir says, it's not easy at all, referring to the fact that whenever Chachik goes with them, she ends up making the mess bigger than it really is. And Chief tells them that this is their last chance to prove themselves. And if they make the slightest of mistakes, he will grind them like powder. I don't know what Turkish saying that is, but that's really funny to me. And when Naz gets up to go, Nehir calls her, frantically freaking out at the idea that Tarik has found someone else and wants to meet up with her to discuss this, as Zainab has put that idea that her father is cheating on her, similarly like he did with her own mother. And Naz goes, okay, yes, let's meet up real quickly. And she hangs up the phone and she says that I can't believe this is like playing hide and seek with this family of maniacs. Everyone is suspicious of each other, and nobody understands each other really. They sit and talk with no dialogue. Pamir smiles at this and says, of course, dialogue is important. Nas says that what you're saying is right, I'm going. Talik right away asks Pamir, why don't you have some dialogue with Nas since you decide to disappear somehow? And this is when Pamir asks Talik, oh, Nas called you, didn't she? And Talik just says that the girl is worried about you. And Pamir says she gets too excited. Talik says excitement is very important, Mr. Pamir. A person first worries and then only everything happens on after that.
Yeah, it was this weird Turkish saying about like how they first start worrying and then everything else happens afterwards. I did love that he says excitement is very important, Mr. Pamir. So at the Seaside Cafe, Nehir and Naz are meeting, and Nehir is convinced that Tarik is cheating on her, and Yaz is trying to convince her otherwise. Yaz steers the topic to Zainab and asking what she was up to and if she was sneaking anywhere at night. Nehir says no, she's on house arrest. I was like, I see you, girl. You're jelly, and you were trying to find out if Zainab was the one that was meeting up with your man Pamir last night. And so Tarik arrives at Yaz's office for their next therapy session. She asks how he's been since last session. He says bad. He's more confused than before after her questions. And he asks her if he's old-fashioned, because people keep telling him that since he only works with family. And she asks why he only works with them. And he says because a family is the best thing that can happen to a person in this world, which was so cute. Aww. And she says, true, but there must be a reason you only work with family. And he says, there is. I trust only my family. So when going to leave, Tarik says he sees Levent is part of the family, and he doesn't just let anyone sit at his table and come in his house and everything, and then he's working with him, and I'm sure that she knows. And so Naz calls Pamir to tell him Tarik just left and is on his way to him because he's going to meet Levent at his office. And so Pamir says, why why she's doing that and why she says says stay at her office alone. Alone. And so then she's like, I'm gonna go to my mother's, I'm not just staying here. And he says, I know, watch out for yourself. And she's like, you too, and hangs up, looking kind of mad and bored at her phone. And she's like sitting there just being bored at the office. And so Talat and Pamir are talking about the new job with the trucks. And Talat pulls out a wedding photo of Yaz and Levent for Levent's desk. And Talat says, this is your office. There should be a photo of you and your wife here, right? Which was so cute. And Pamir picks it up and he's staring at it right away as Naz is doing the same thing across town in her office, which was so cute. And so then Tarik and Adam arrive as Pamir Levent is still gazing at the wedding photo. And Tarik says, Salam alaikum, brother. Did you miss your wife looking at her photo? Which I thought was so cute.
Actually.
And he was like, I just took a look. Welcome. Come sit down. And so Tarik says they have their own system for loading goods. And if he agrees with their system, they'll go ahead. And so he obviously asks what that system is. And Tarik says they load up their trucks with only his employees. And during the drive, one of his men will always be with the driver of the trucks. And so Tarik asks if the trucks have GPS. And Pamir says yes. And then Adam immediately says, turn it off. And so this is obviously shady. And so they ask if he understands. He says, yes, but I don't understand why you bother so much. There's only 2 boxes of perch and 3 of mackerel, aka it's only fish. And so Tarik is sighing and says, don't neglect the fish like that, Brother Levent. This is our income. We are meticulous about our work, which I thought was so funny. I really like Tarik. He's so weird and funny. And so he says the delivery will be to Rome and they just need 2 freezer trucks. And so Talat is down in the truck depot getting everything ready when he gets a text with details from Pamir. And so Talat is upset the GPS will be turned off. And so he calls the chief and they're upset because they can't use their normal tracking or inspection methods because they can't also pull the truck over at a checkpoint to get it checked out because then that will alert Tarik that something is going on. And so the chief tells Talat to do whatever he needs to see what's in those trucks. And so Tarik is leaving and he and Levent are talking about working together and Levent calls him an angel for helping. And Tarik says, well, yes, until there was a need, I didn't help, Brother Levent. And so the trucks arrive and Talat is spying from inside the depot, but Adam comes up behind him with a gun and points it at the back of his head. And so he asks who he is, and Pamir sees and runs to rescue and saying, Abe, this is my older brother, Talat. And Tarik asks if he was in jail. And Levent says, he just appeared in front of me. You should have told me you were coming. And then Talat yells at Adam that he's the owner of this warehouse. And he needs to be looking at the trucks loading their goods. And Tarik tells them they should go to lunch while the goods are loaded to trucks. And Talat says he has work to do here, but Tarik is really insisting that Talat and Levent come with him. And so Pamir asks if Talat was able to see in the boxes once obviously they're away from the other 2. And he says, no, Adam showed up.
Zainab and Tufan are talking in the garden, and she's insisting that Nehir brought Levent and Yaz into her father's life because her father would never ever let a stranger into the house because Tufan had been complaining to her saying that your dad is suddenly trusting Levent more than me. And Tufan says that you don't have no idea what is going on. My older brother, who used to call me brother, is now calling him brother. Do you know how many times he's called me brother? And he basically shows his hand. He says only a handful of times. Okay, Zainab? And Zainab says that she can't believe that he's so calm all about this. She would have slammed her fist on the table, and says that Tufan is even the heir. And he says, what inheritances do you really think? Is there one? And she says her dad thinks so, but Tufan doesn't agree as her dad has not given Tufan much of a thought since he's gotten out of that hospital incident. he's kind of been on the back burner. So
yeah, poor Tufan. I really felt really bad for him because like he is right. Like he was so mean to him and he doesn't call him brother, but he literally calls Levent brother. So it is really disrespectful to poor Tufan, his legit Kardesh. So in the car, Tulloch keeps talking about Adam putting a gun to his head, and Palmyra keeps telling him to forget it. And he says, "Forget it. I could be dead, and tomorrow you could be burying me." Which I'm like, he isn't being dramatic. He's right. He is right. And so Talat tells Pamir to have the cops stop them for a control stop, but Pamir says they can't do that. And if Tarik is testing them, then at the slightest doubt, he will end them. Which, yet again, thinking like a smart cop, unlike when he fell for that stupid trap in the beginning of the series, which made no sense. And so Talat calls Naz, and Pamir says, people are everywhere. Let's not risk it. Or says call Naz, and he was like, people are everywhere, we can't risk it. And so Talat says she knows them, like please tell her, let her try and look for the back entrance or like sneak in, like she'll be able to do it because like she's your wife, so she won't be raising any suspicion. And so he was like, you see, this is the best solution, you have to come to better ones, Mr. Pamir. And he says, let's do it. Come on. I'm listening. Call Naz. And so Pamir finally relents and calls her as she was falling asleep doodling at Yaz's office, bored out of her mind. And he asks where she is, and she says, why are you asking me where I am? I don't ask you. And he says, my dear, now is not the time. Tarik's people are loading the guns in the truck right now. She gets caught up, and he asks her to go there and be careful. Adam is there, and if anyone asks you, you went to visit your husband. And then she puts on her sweet, happy Yaz voice and says, "Happy, I'm going to surprise you. See you." I love how she just switched right into that voice for no one, because no one was there listening.
Yeah, that was so weird, but she's getting into her character. And at Tarik's restaurant, he's questioning Tarik left and right. He's like, so why'd you give your company to your little brother Levent? And so then Tarik says it's because his wife asked him to, basically. And Tarik says, oh, what a romantic family you are. Levent is also so in love with Naz too. And Levent says, yes, I am. And Tarik says, yes, I even wrote poetry when I was younger. For a quick second, I was scared for him because I thought Tarik was going to ask him to recite poetry. Well,
I would actually love that if he was like, I'd love to hear one of your poems, Talape.
Could you imagine? But while all of this is happening, Naz is sneaking into the depot and she's checking all the loaded trucks. But she comes to find out that they're all fish on ice. And just as she was about to leave, she ends up getting locked in one of the freezer trucks. And it starts to leave with her inside.
Dun, dun, dun. Of course, y'all. Of course she gets stuck in the freezer. Because it's not a Dizi if the girl is not locked in a freezer of some sort and her love interest has to go and save her. I can count on my hand multiple times that's happened. And so Tarik asks how far apart in age Levent and Talat are, and Talat says 10 years. I was a naughty child. My parents, that's why they probably waited so long, because they were afraid they'd have another one. And then he says, we were expecting Levent to be a girl. I really wanted a sister. And Levent makes this adorable face, like smiling. Then he was like, well, but a boy was born. Well, nothing. It's even better, Talat says, which was so cute. And so Naz calls during lunch and says she's checked and it's all only fish. And he says, we expected this. He wouldn't give us a real job till he tested us. Go home and I'll see you later. And then she says, Levent, we have a problem. I got stuck inside the truck. And he's like, okay, I'll leave now and head to the office. And she says, no, don't. The truck left with me inside. And she asks if there's, if it's a refrigerated truck, or she says it's a refrigerated truck and it's very cold in here. I'm very cold. And so then he's like starting to freak out. He's like, okay, don't be afraid. I'll be right there. Send me the location. Don't forget. And then so Levent runs over to the table and says goodbye to the guys. And he's like, I'm sorry, my mother-in-law got sick. We have to go. And so Talat tries to leave with him, but Tarik keeps insisting he stays with him and finish lunch. And so finally he ends up staying with him. And Tarik says to Talat that Levent is too attached to his mother-in-law. And Talat laughs and says, actually, Mr. Tarik, Yaz's mother doesn't particularly like Levent. And Levent is trying in every possible way to please her, so he runs around for her. So Tarik says, of course, you have to get along with your mother-in-law. And Talat says, mother-in-law, if you don't get along with her, there's a problem, which both men are completely right.
Yeah. And Tufan is going to some restaurant with them, and the guy asks him which wind brought him here, basically reminding us of his previous role in Baktayanyu as Ruzgir. Again, the theories.
I couldn't believe when they actually said that. I was like, they're doing it on purpose. Yes. Because there was absolutely no reason for them to say what Ruzgar brought you here.
Yeah, right. So they go back to that dude's office, and
our hot dude, which we now know what his name was, because I didn't know at the time.
Yazir.
Yes,
hottie. So they go back to his office, and Ardham is saying, "Oh, what a lovely view you have." And the dude is like, "Wow, I've never heard your voice before." Ardham's like, "Yes, it's very rare. Sometimes it's the last voice people hear." I was like,
I love Adam. I was like, that was actually really, really funny. I really liked that scene. Yeah, I was like, don't kill our hottie.
I know, and Yasir laughs, but as they're talking, Ardham takes this opportunity to plant a bug in the guy's office. So I'm gonna assume that they suspect him to be the bugger in Tarik's office, as previously he was one of the last people that was in the office. So
yeah, and since Tarik and Adam like his dad or his uncle, they were like, oh, maybe it's this dude. I'm assuming that's why also that they were doing that.
Yeah, so Levent is pretty much out of the clear. They're not suspecting him to be the bugger. And Pamir,
which is surprising. So then Pamir is driving frantically, which I was like, yes, get to your woman, to get to Naz. And he calls and asks if she's okay. He's about to drive up to the truck. He's waiting for the truck to stop to get gas, and he'll pick her up from there and get her out of the truck at the gas station. And he asks her if she can wait, and she says yes. And then she was like, oh, but her phone battery is dying, because of course at that moment it like beeps and like is almost dying. And so Talat calls Pamir and asks if he's caught up to the truck. He's like, yeah. Pamir is upset, saying he can't wait to get till the gas station to get Naz out. She'll freeze to death before then. And that Talat needs to tell the patrol to stop them. When then they get stopped, he'll get Naz out. And so the security cops checkpoint on the highway ends up stopping the truck. And so Pamir runs to open the truck to get her out. And then he puts his suit jacket on her, rubbing her arms and holding her. It was so cute. I was like, yes. And so on the way back to the car, he stops and put his hands on her forearm inside his jacket and says, Naz, don't risk yourself like that again, okay? Which I was like, oh, he was so worried, and he's calling her Naz again, everyone. And she says, okay. And he says, let's go get you something to drink. And then she turns around laughing and says, but now we know what happens at the checkpoints, right? They were like wondering, I guess, what happened. And so when they get back home, she sneezes and he says, bless you. And she says she's going to go change. And he says, I'll make you some hot soup, which was so cute. I was dying. And then he comes out on the couch smiling and says, your soup is ready, Miss Naz, but she's asleep on the couch. So he puts down the soup and tucks her in with the blanket, smiling and staring. And then he knocks himself out of it. So he's just like, whoa, no, I can't be swooning about this. And so later in the evening, he comes down to wake her up, saying they need to get to her mom's, but she isn't waking up. And so he's like, starts to freak out. He feels that she has a fever. And then she says she's very cold. And so he says they have to bring her temperature down. So she tries to stand, but of course she almost falls. So he picks her up and carries her up the stairs, and then she's like, Pamir, and he says, I'm here, don't worry. And I'm like, oh, I love this so much. So we get to the bathroom, he's turning on the shower and puts her under it, but she's saying, Anne, Anne, I'm so cold, I'm so cold. And so then he ends up going under with her, which we love. We love a double shower moment in Dizi's, and she keeps almost falling. So then he goes and holds her, and then he says, I'm here now. We're both cold. I'm here, Naz. And he was holding her and wiping her face and rubbing her head. And it was so sweet and so soft. I was like, oh, the Pamir feels. And so then they have a moment gazing at each other in the waterfall shower, and he's almost smiling and he's hugging her. And then she says, she's hugging him back, and she's like, I'm very cold, Pamir. Don't let go. As he's rubbing her shoulders and back, saying, okay, I will not let you go. Look, I'm here by your side. Don't worry. I was like, oh, this whole scene was so amazing. And his curls, by the way, everybody, because he was in the shower, all the products got washed out of it. So we got to see Khalid's like legit curls, and I was yelling because I love his curls.
He has the most beautiful curls ever. Usually I don't like guys with curls, but oh my God, he looks so cute. He really did.
And I love them together so much. They're so cute. And so then she goes to sit down in the shower, and he goes with her, still holding her and rubbing her against himself. And after the shower, he changes and her phone rings. It's her mom, and he picks it up and he tells her his sister-in-law is sick and they can't come to dinner. She keeps trying to get him or them to come, and she's even saying, like, if it was me, I would put an IV in my arm and just like come on over. I was like, what is this lady talking about? She's crazy. And so then he finally says, we'll come tomorrow, and then he just straight up hangs up on her, which I loved. I was like, honestly, that's the behavior they should have gone into with her mom, because her mom is out of control and needs some reality checks.
And then I didn't get the IV part either. And then I was like, oh, wait, she's a retired nurse. That's what she means by jamming the IV.
I know. I didn't understand that either. I was like, what is she talking about? And then I was like, oh, because then she says later again, she says to Namik about the IV and like how if it was her, she would have just done it. And I was like, who just has an IV lying around? And even Naz mentions too, she's like, oh, when the slightest thing, and my mom would put an IV in me.
Is that legal though?
So he ends up going into Naz's room to check on her, and he gets into bed with her and smiles, and then he's feeling her head, and he says, your fever must be gone, which was another adorable shipper moment. And he gets up to leave, but then she grabs his hand while she's still asleep, and he's like, I'm here. And then eventually he settles into the bed next to her, sitting up real awkwardly while she's like laying on her side face towards him, holding his hand. And then the next morning, she wakes up the next morning and takes her hand out of his, confused. And then she smiles and stretches, but she ends up waking up Pamir, who was sitting fully up.
Weird position, by the way. I was like
he's gonna need to go to the chiropractor, y'all, after sleeping like that. And so he asked if she's feeling better, and she says the shower helped. And it's like, I'm glad that he says he's glad that he helped her, which was so cute. And so then he asks if she wants breakfast, and she's like, yeah. And so then he goes to make it, and then before he leaves, she asks if he stayed all night sitting with her and holding her hand. And right away, he's like, no, I just came in to check on you this morning and fell asleep. Liar! You liar! How dare you? Yep, liar. And so she smiles and laying back in bed when he leaves, because I think she knows that he was lying, that he did hold her hand all night, which was so freaking cute.
And then back at the station, Tala is giving the chief a full rundown on what happened on Tarik's latest transportation op. Tarik goes over to Chick and tells her to stop fake working, because whenever she sees him, she goes and she pulls up all the binders and says, look at how much work I have to do in order to escape being with Igor. I think that's the most hilarious thing ever. So funny. And then she says, but you'll appreciate me when it's too late. He asks if there's any other person he would rather pick. So cute. Anyways, Tarik gets downstairs and his phone rings, and he says to Chick and runs back because he sees that Ayanor is at the station down the floor, and Tarik goes and grabs to Chick and they hide in a room. And Chick is really confused. She's like, what are you doing, bro? And Talik says, Talik says to her that Ainur is here, and she goes, "What is this woman doing here?"
Which really,
And
she's not wrong.
How do I know? As she that what she's doing, this woman is single-handedly ruining our operation. Oh my god, for reals, bro.
Literally,
It's all your fault, brother. You are to blame. I know what to say to this woman, but come on, Talik. He says, "Do you know what you must do? Don't." Oh, he tells her, "You know what you must do. You must sit here and not make any sounds, okay?" And he peeks out and sees her coming up the stairs right in front of the room they're in. So he slams the door back shut, and says that she's coming over. Cover my my hand space. Cover my hand space if she comes here.
Yeah, he's literally like cover my hand, like my face, like everything, like cover everything. She comes over here
while pushing her against the wall. Instead, some random cops ends up walking in and says, "Sorry, brother," when he sees the position that Talik and Chick is in. And Talik steps away and says, "Why are you apologizing? This was while discussing personal things here. Grab your stuff and get out." He really wants to say, like, "Leave us alone." And Talik turns to her and says, "Do you think that he suspects something?" And she said, "Who cares what he thinks?" Queen, by the way.
I did love how Jack did not care if that cop was thinking that they were like
together,
flirtatious moment. She was like, whatever, who cares? I thought that was a nice change.
And Ainur is in the chief's office by now, and the chief is apologizing and saying that Nas surprised him too, which, by the way, so true. He had no idea, and says, "Believe me, I could not imagine that this would ever happen." He asks what he can do for her, and since she says, "Wow, what a great question." Ever since that he's appeared in their lives, Nas has looked into her eyes and has started to twist facts. He says, actually, Nas isn't that kind of girl, and she says that, "Don't tell me about my daughter. I didn't come here because of Nas. I actually came for Levent." She says that early on, Namuk and her had talked, and she got the idea to check into his background. He says that the chief says that he was also worried about Nas, and ended up looking up Levent too, and he says that he tells Ainur that Levent is a really great guy, but I cannot give you his address because that is personal information.
Yeah, because she was wanted his address, his family's address, like everybody's addresses.
Yeah, and Ainur ends up going back home defeated.
Yeah, and so Talat calls Pamir while he's finishing up breakfast in the kitchen and tells him his mother-in-law is at the station. And he says, "What do you mean? Lord, will this woman never back down? Why, brother?" And so he ends up asking if Chichek knows why she's there. And he says no. And Pamir says, no, this woman won't stop, which he's right. He knows already. And like as he's having this conversation, the doorbell rings. So Pamir hangs up and answers it, and it's Namek. And he says he couldn't sleep. It's his sister. Pamir says, yes, she's at the station. And Namek asks, what happened? Have you been caught? Did she find out everything? And Pamir's like, no. And so Namek says he wished they were caught. He's tired of this fake life. He can't lie to his sister. He would be calmer if they were caught. And Namek asks where Nas is. Pamir says sleeping upstairs right as Nas comes down. And then he asks where Pamir slept. And so Nas is like, he slept on the couch, which I love that he was like, wait a second, who was sleeping where? I love that this is the first time that he's asking where that was. And so he asked how she is, and she says she had a temperature and Levent took care of her, which I thought was funny that she said Levent took care of her, not Pamir. Savage, because it was Pamir taking care of her. Oh, that was so mean. And so then She says, imagine if mom was here. She would make me sleep for 2 days and put in an IV. And see, that's what we were talking about. The IV apparently is this well-known thing. And so Namek says, my sister's a retired nurse, a little headache. She immediately puts the IV in. And so Namek says he came to warn them that when they didn't show up for dinner, she went to the police station to get background checks on him and his family. And they need to come to talk about the wedding at Einor's later. And Namek says his shift is over and asks if they could give him a ride. And she says, Uncle. And he's like, Uncle, what? I ride the bus. I'm on it for an hour and you have the latest model car and you say uncle? I thought that was so funny.
As this is happening, Adam and Tufan go back to the dude's office and to that dude Yasir and says that they're here to do business. His name is Sahil, and Erdem says Tarik is working with strange people now and that he's lost his mind. Erdem says that the time of Tarik Kuzulu is now over and now you have to deal with me. Deal with me only, or are you in or you're not? Let me know now.
So yeah, which dun surprise.
Yep.
It's a very big surprise. So back at Einor's, Levent and the fam are all there eating lunch, talking about the wedding. And so Talat says they'll do a small wedding between the two of them, as in the two families. And Einor says a small wedding won't work. We have a lot of relatives. And Naz agrees, saying a small wedding would be best. And Einor says, so you're going to offend 100 people? And they're all like, 100? What? And Namek says, yes, the gold we gave, we must get back. I love that he's still obsessed with that damn gold. And so Einar says it is necessary for everyone to come. They have a very close-knit big family. And Einar asks to check how many people they're inviting. She says they also have a big family and would also invite 100 people. Levent interrupts and says, Naz and I have to get back to London. She has school and I have work. And Einar says, this is even better. We need to decide quickly. We need to hurry now. Namek tells Levent to call her mom, not Miss Einor, and he makes this face. And Einor says, why are you forcing him? Leave him alone. He can call me whatever he wants. We are one big happy family, which I thought was really sweet. And so Levent is looking sad into space, and Nazmir get back into their house, and Pamir goes to sit on the couch, seemingly upset. She, of course, asks if something's bothering him, that he didn't speak the entire way home. And he says, no, why does everything have to be so complicated? She says, I told you, you went and said that we secretly got married. Her reaction is quite normal, in my opinion. And he says he doesn't want to talk about this anymore. And she's like, what does that mean? You can't open and close a topic whenever you want, which I really liked. Tell him. And he says, it doesn't matter. Let's not delay. I don't want to talk about this anymore. And she says she wants to. And he says, okay, then you can talk to yourself. And he goes upstairs. Wow. Savage. Just as his phone rings, she's eavesdropping and hears him say, is it not risky? And can you leave? And so she ends up knocking this big sculpture thing down at the top of the staircase. So he comes out and he asks if she was eavesdropping on him. And she's like, what? What do you mean? I went out to change. And he says, good, get changed.
Nehir and Tarik are sitting and drinking coffee when Zainab comes up to them and says, Daddy, can I tell you something? Nehir laughs. And Tarik says, ask. If the sentence starts with the word daddy, then you definitely have to ask for something big. And she says that today is her best friend's birthday and she would want to go out for it. And he goes, okay, you can go. And Nehir says, you did wrong. The last time we let her leave, she disappeared, but it's your daughter, so you know what's best for her.
Yeah, so then Pamir comes down the steps as Naz is on the couch, and she again asks where he's going, and he says, where will I go? I go here. Why do you care? And she's like, because we're partners. And then he says, I'm bored. I'll go get some air. Are you satisfied? And so then she says, I'm not. And she says, you can't leave like this. We need to talk. And of course, he's like, we have nothing to talk about. She says, enough. Don't do this to me, which I really like. She's standing up for herself. And he says, I don't do this to you. She says, you are. It's like you're two different people. One says, don't worry, I'll take care of everything. The other acts like it's my fault. One holds my hand and is on duty next to me until the morning. The other runs away without even looking at me. which is such good points, and she is not exaggerating. He really is acting like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And so then, of course, he's like, I'm not running away. And so she grabs him again on the arm and says, you are running away. And he says, Nas, let go of my hand. And she's like, I won't let go, because she won't let him leave like this. You're running away from my mom, from me, even from yourself. I will not let you tell me that it's not that you don't have a problem. And so he's jerking his hand away and says, I have no problems, and then leaves.
He's going to the car and she follows him, but stops when she notices Zainab comes up to him by his car. And she says, you didn't take our last conversation seriously when I told you to stay away from my family. But I see that you're not going to stay away. So you have to be careful so that there's no problems. He says that I don't think that there will be problems. And he goes, I think you and your family should solve your own problems.
I love that.
She says, you're right. And Nas starts walking towards them because she notices from atop that Tarik is staring down, watching them closely. Zainab says maybe he can help her with this. And that's when Yaz yells, Levent, darling, can you come here for a minute? And smiles, sweetly waving at him. He comes up to her and asking what happened again. She looks behind him and grabs him just to kiss him quickly, and they're both surprised. And then out of nowhere, he quickly and sweetly pulls her in for a kiss. And they stare at each other, and that is how we end our episode.
Y'all, I love that kiss so much. I love that he, like, because she, was doing it because A, she was mad about Zainab, and B, she saw that Tarik was there, and she didn't want to think that his daughter was, like, trying to cheat with her husband. So that's why she kissed him. But the fact that he kissed her so sweetly, and, like, his reaction was definitely not that he was doing it to put on a show. Like, I think he genuinely thought that she just, like, kissed him and grabbed him and was like, oh, and so then he was like, oh, it was so sweet.
I know these two episodes were really great, honestly. I think that considering for how fast, like, the show was going to end, they did the best that they could, and it didn't seem like it was too rushed, you know what I mean? So I'm excited for the episode.
I think we knew at this point that they were ending. I think this was just the natural timeline, that they've been really, really good about it.
Okay, we have to cut.
But yeah, we will see everybody next week for episode 7 and 8. Bye, guys.